Hey everybody, welcome back to Linux for Everyone, and welcome home. This is episode 55, and I am joined, of course, by Jerry Morrison and Mr. Schykle.
Hello, hello.
Now, I don't know, I just want to say this up front, I don't know how long Schykle will be with us because as I'm recording this, it's about 7 o'clock my time in Croatia, but his time, it is the middle of the workday, and he kind of has a new job. So I'm just gonna shut up and let him tell you why he might have to leave.
All right, well, you see, once upon a time, I applied for a job with this really cool company called System 76. And I got that job.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't react at all because I've known this for like a week, and we did another segment like 3 days ago where he talked about getting the job, and so yeah, it's
This is a nice, fun way to spend a lunch, and yeah.
excellent. Well, thank you for spending your lunch with us.
Yeah, glad you're here.
This might work out. I hadn't planned on Schykle being here. I literally made the call on Jitsi at our scheduled time, and Schykle was the first person to answer, and I thought he would be working, and that's why he and I recorded a segment about his privacy journey and his joining System 76 and a couple other things that might make it into this episode. We did that on Friday, about 3-4 days ago, and so now I'm kind of winging it. I'm not exactly sure what the structure of this episode looks like, but what I do know is I have a nearly 1 hour conversation with the co-founder of Mycroft AI. We go a lot into the issues with privacy and the issues with having a virtual assistant tagging along wherever you are in life. And anyway, so that's a very good conversation. I think you guys are going to enjoy that. And then Schykle and I talked a bit about a non-Addy and kind of caught up with his privacy journey. And then later on, we have this really long conversation about the Mac and Linux ecosystem in light of the M1, M1 Pro, and M1 Max launches. So before we get into Community Voice, because you guys had... Linux for Everyone listeners had a metric ton of feedback. I have never received this much feedback when I was doing a solo show. It doesn't, in 53 episodes, it never happened. I could launch a mini site with all of the recommendations and insights and emails that you guys sent, and we are so grateful for that. We can't possibly read them all, but we're going to try and parse through it and get some of that information out there. Right now, though, Jerry, I want to catch up with you a little bit and see how your privacy journey is going, especially in light of the study that came out.
Well, first off, before we jump into that, I want to note how completely on brand it is for Schykle to just like completely be chaotic good and show up when he's not expected at all. Completely on brand. I love it so much. Dude, you can't predict a Schykle.
The Schykle is unpredictable.
Oh
right.
my goodness.
So yeah, I mean, not too much to update. I as far as my own kind of personal, security journey, I will say this. I noticed I was at a cookout. Well, I guess it would have been the weekend after we recorded last. I got hit with the targeted ads again. There at the bonfire, the person's house we were at, they had one of those new smokeless bonfires. I don't know if you've seen these things. They're pretty cool. But they were sitting there and we were talking about them. And I started getting ads for them on Facebook and Instagram within this week. And I didn't search it. I didn't look for anything because we were just talking about it and he was telling me about it. But I 100% did not.
Unreal.
and I'm getting ads for them now, which is,
it's like you're confident you guys weren't texting each other or sending each other links.
This is not a person that I text with.
Oh wow!
Or anything. Like this is not a person that I even interact with.
That is so Facebook scary, man.
So it's incredibly strange. And so I saw that that article you sent over with the pull it up here, the study about the effectiveness of Apple's app tracking transparency.
We found that app tracking transparency made no difference in the total number of active third-party trackers and had a minimal impact on the total number of tracking connection attempts. We further confirmed that detailed personal or device data was being sent to trackers in almost all cases.
I like that they say off the top, like, who they are, that, they're ex-Apple engineers that value privacy and transparency. And so they say that right off the top, and I have no reason to believe otherwise. On the flip side of that, I'm always a little dubious of any time an ex-employee of a company comes out with a study for said company. I'm not saying that there is any sort of malicious or anything like that, but I don't know, just kind of take things. I try to take things, I don't want to say with a grain of salt, but like try to observe from all sides of it.
Well, right? That's fair. I mean, I think it's like going to a doctor who gives you some really bad news, right? You're going to want a second opinion. You're going to want an independent second opinion, maybe ideally from someone who doesn't have maybe a biased connection to the source material, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And all that to say is, and I certainly didn't intend to paint the picture last episode that I think Apple is infallible and like
I don't think you painted that picture, but
and so and I just want to call that out to say like I think my stance with Apple is it's almost like they're the lesser of the evils. Like I as a consumer and a user of lots of Apple products, I at least get the feeling that they're at least trying to look out for my privacy and my best interests. However, they are a company that makes lots and lots and lots of money, right? Like, and so they're going to do what they need to do to make lots and lots and lots of money. Now, I believe them when they say they don't harvest any personal details or sell that to people. I mean, say what you will about Google, they're at least not they don't pretend like they're not doing that. So, it's kind of like two sides of the same coin, right? So you kind of just know what you're getting into. Do I think that they're perfect and that I think every measure that they take lands perfectly? Not at all. So I find this very interesting. Like I'm definitely going to I'd like to do a little bit of a deeper dive into kind of like this study and some of the data and what they're comparing it to and how they came to it.
I feel like it deserves it deserves that deeper dive. I mean, I think that I have done what a lot of media have done is I've mentioned it in passing, kind of as a reaction, but I haven't seen, and I'm sorry, I don't have the knowledge or the time to do this. Right. But I haven't really seen any influential journalists or outlets analyzing this report to jump on it and try to verify it. And, but so I'm being vague about it because I actually go into detail with Joshua Montgomery later in the show during our interview. Yeah. When you ask an app not to track you on iPhone, on iOS, it is kind of like you're asking. Right. Not demanding.
So, and which is fair. And it's kind of like the do not track bit that you can enable in browsers and stuff. Like it's politely asking, and it's up to the end, the endpoint to say, okay, sure, I'll comply with your request, or nah, I'm good.
I think I do appreciate that it was always a question from the start. Like it was always a disclaimer, like we cannot stop apps from tracking you.
But I don't think that's the impression that Apple has given people, though. Unless I'm naive, and I'm fine. I'm naive. I tend to latch on to like the best of things and look at the positive side.
So the marketing team has other priorities than the implementation team. I imagine making it feel maybe a little more definitive probably helps. But I do think that the impression a lot of people got was that it was going to just stop it. Right. And that's definitely a valid argument. And I think actually the thing that I took away from it most was that people are actually having it put in front of them and that they have to actually think about what's going on. And I know maybe it won't change things for everybody, but I think a big part of privacy and a big part of controlling how your personal life online works is actually knowing about it first.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's
the
probably
biggest first step.
component.
Yeah.
It's the awareness, right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, for me, it was eye-opening. Now, I know that other browsers do this and there's other tools, but the first time that I came into contact with it was using Safari on Mac OS, and it would tell me, like, I think it was maybe just a notification that came up and said, would you like to see your privacy report? Yeah, sure. Okay. I'll check it out. And it was like, oh yeah, we blocked 7,000 trackers from, and it gives you the websites that you visited and how many trackers were blocked and what the trackers were. And it was a realization that, that kicked off this whole almost paranoia, I guess. Like feeling paranoid that something or someone is always paying attention to everything that I'm doing. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Again, another very, very uplifting segment here on Linux for Everyone.
Oh boy. At the end of the day, I think I still trust probably Apple more than I trust Google, Facebook, any of those big companies. I mean, just again, not perfect. They're not. I don't think anyone is perfect. Honestly, I think we touched on this last time. It's such a moving target, honestly. And Apple's had some missteps. I mean, the whole thing where they where they would scan the images that in the news recently, where they would scan the images until for it's like the heart behind it. I understand, but it's like, boy, that was botched. The announcement, the implementation, everything on it was like Apple completely botched it, and it's like, they're not perfect, but it's like I still feel like they value me as a. I don't want to say they value me as a person because they're a company. They don't value me as a person. They value me as someone who gives them money.
But I think that I'm not trying to
value. They value my privacy.
I think that they value making you feel like they value you as a person.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
No, I think that's completely fair. Anyway, no updates otherwise.
Cool. Well, I have a small update. One of the there were apparently several privacy phone companies watching our episode.
Oh, fun.
And a couple of them offered to send me some of their products. And I just got one like 90 minutes before we started recording this, you guys. So I haven't had a chance to do really anything but take it out of the box and power it on. But this is the, I believe it is pronounced Iode. I've watched some of their videos and it's pronounced Iode. It is a privacy phone that is, so Iode has... they have their own product, and they also have a bunch of repurposed Sony Xperia phones and Samsung phones. This one is a Galaxy S10e loaded up with Lineage OS. And so what they do is they've got this app, and hopefully, for those watching the video, hopefully I can get some on-screen footage of this, but they have an app that at any time, and this is a Google-less phone, of course, it's de-Googled. Basically, at any time, you can fire up this app and see exactly what apps are trying to profile you and track you and where that data is being sent. And you can instantly just like hit the button and stop it. So it's another layer, it's another layer of privacy and protection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move into this phone. I'm gonna put my SIM card in here. I'm gonna load up all my apps. That's going to take a long time because I'm not going to sign in with a Google account and automatically like import all my apps and installations and logins. So it's gonna take forever. But I want to really see if I can enjoy a little bit more privacy without Google around and see and probably get some pretty scary insights into what apps are tracking me and trying to profile my habits. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. I don't know if it'll be a separate video on the Linux for Everyone channel or we will for sure talk about it on Linux for Everyone 56.
kind of an addendum. I said I didn't have anything else, and I do. I just found this setting, and I was kind of messing with my phone last night. In iOS, there's a option it's called Record App Activity. And you can enable it. It's off by, you may know this, Schykle. It looks like you're shaking your head, but you can actually like save a 7-day summary of when apps access your data, like your location, microphone, and see when apps or websites you visit. Within apps when they contact other domains. And so you can save that out and kind of see. And so I enabled this last night. I'm going to run it for 7 days, and I'm really curious.
Let us. Okay, we'll make a note to
follow up.
Circle back and look at that. That's going to be frightening.
As you were mentioning that app, I'm like, oh yeah, I actually did find this setting. So people are probably gonna be like, oh yeah, that's been there for a long time. I just didn't know about it. So.
All right, Schykle, you're joining me without Jerry because you might be, unfortunately and fortunately, missing the recording of Linux for Everyone number 55. Because why?
Well, you see, I've accepted the ultimate responsibility of engineering pure joy.
Engineering pure joy. You know, that's interesting. Because I did an interview with Emma of System 76, and she's a happiness engineer. Are these things related?
They may just be. So I put my name in with System 76, which I'm incredibly excited about. I mean, the opportunity itself was thrilling, but I had a couple of interviews, and I will be starting, or by this time I have started. See, the magic of editing.
Yep.
But I will be starting as a happiness engineer, and I'm honestly really thrilled about it. System 76 makes really cool stuff, and they also have really cool people behind them. Like, it's probably the perfect example of what I would consider like a community-driven like laptop and desktop manufacturer. Some of it has to do with the scale, I'm sure, right? Like it's easier to move and connect with people when you're smaller. But I think even more so, it's their values, right? It's System 76 values the people behind these projects and the people that make the things they make possible, and they value the people that use them, and there's this constant feedback loop with them, and that's something that I get to be a part of. You know, it's the perfect opportunity for me because I love tech and I love helping people love tech.
I'm not gonna lie, at this point I know so many people that have either applied for or are working at System 76 now in this community that like I can't wait to go to the next Superfan event whenever Superfan 3 was what 2-3 years ago at this point. I know there's going to be a Superfan 4, and that's going to be just a party. That's going to be a huge party.
It's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be. So anyway, congratulations. And
thank you.
And Carl, if you're watching or listening to this, please let Schykle have an hour or two off to record Linux for Everyone. Thank you. Okay. Well, anyway, dude, we look forward to you doing great things there, along with Alex and Aaron and Jeremy, the rock star of Linux. He is kind of the rock star of Linux in my mind right now.
He's definitely a rock star, that's for sure. And not like the Nickelback song. It's definitely much more.
Do not mention Nickelback on this show. Oh my god, we already have a whole episode's worth of outtakes.
So good.
Episode 54, we went down kind of a depressing rabbit hole. Normally the rabbit holes that we go down in Linux are exciting and adventurous. This one, there was a dark turn or two in episode 54, just as we realized how much of our privacy has been slowly eroding away.
Oh, yeah.
So I just wanted to catch up with you since we recorded this about 2 weeks ago and ask you kind of how your privacy journey has gone since then. You mentioned that you were using 2 new products called Session for messaging and a non-ADDI for anonymized email. How are both of those going for you?
I've generally been having a good experience. With Session in particular, it's just been easy, and I think that's kind of all I can ask for, right? Obviously, the goal is that it's private and an anonymous. Wow, words. Anemone. What I really want from an app like that, like Session, is that it's straightforward and follows the similar design practices that any other messaging app probably would, right? If I want to start a message with someone, I just add them to a chat and I communicate with them. I don't have to like send them 2 different encryption keys and then have them like cross verify. I just look, let me scan the QR code or send you the number here, this generated number, and that's it. Right? Nothing else to it.
Cool.
No phone number involved. And so far it's been reliable, and I'm no network security engineer or expert, but I generally trust it. And yeah, so that's been going super well. I haven't had connection issues with it, despite the fact that it's routing the traffic to like 5 different spots around the world every time I send a message.
So what about a non-ADDI? I'm not sure how to even pronounce that. A non-ADDI.
A non-ADDI has been an interesting experience for me. It is a paid service, and it does work well for the most part. But I will be honest, I sort of spoiled myself with the expectation that it would feel and integrate the way that Apple ID's system works, and it just doesn't, right? It's very rare that you have a third-party service that integrates with system things like sign in with, or it's a very manual process. And something that I think I would prefer is if I go to sign in with something and it was just, here's an automatically randomated generated thing for you.
Randomated. That's just a good combination of, I like it. Yeah.
That's how it works. I had a stroke and here we are. With things like Bitwarden, perhaps, right? You can enable it as autofill in your Android system settings or your iOS system settings, and you have different like settings for when it's triggered and whether it draws over other apps or whether it's inline in your keyboard. With this, it's a very sort of like open the app, create one, and then drop it in, copy paste, and that's fine. But I would like to think that we have better options. I feel like we should have better options, and the inconvenience of going back and forth between apps to create these, especially when a lot of apps, if you leave them during a sign-in process, they'll like either just completely blank out the fields, or start you all over.
Right.
I've had that happen a couple of times. It's not worth it. It's just I can't do it. Like it's such a great concept, to be able to easily cut out spam and not have your email address in more and more and more spam lists. But just the inconvenience of refilling forms and not having autofill just isn't viable for me.
It really goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode, was that convenience is a drug. In many ways, it feels like a drug. I mean, do you know how to get around those issues, Schykle? You can set up your own mail in a box on Linode or something like that, which is what I've done. I haven't dug real deep into it, but again, that took me like half a day to set up, and plus there's the management of it. And it's a great, like, for what it is, mail in a box is superb, but it takes someone who is technically savvy to get it set up. And it just keeps circling back to the fact that there are so many great options for people who are more privacy conscious, but the usability for most of those alternatives is just not up there yet, like ready for prime time yet.
A core difference too is when you create something with Apple ID, it's almost like that email address is only used for email. Like if I sign into something,
what a novel concept, right?
I know, right? if I sign into something with like an email address I've created for a non-addy, it's like that email address is like my login name, or that email address, it's like when you go to sign into a service, you'd put your normal email address. So it's this randomized long email address that I have to then save, I guess, different email addresses in my Bitwarden, and it just gets really messy really fast, especially because
imagine.
You can't really identify any of them either. Like, you can cross-reference them, but
No, that's too much work. It's too much work. Now, if you were someone who, your life depended on you remaining anonymous, that work would very well be worth it, right? To protect your livelihood. But yeah, well, okay. So, any other stuff that's kind of come across your radar since we talked in the last episode?
I have been working on getting my mother to have two-factor authentication for more and more accounts. And
cool.
Bitwarden has this sort of built in. And I know, depending on like your level of security, you may not want the same app that manages your passwords to also do your two-factor. But in this case, it's more so that if there's a leak of the password from like a website that didn't store things properly or secure things properly, they still can't log in even if they have the password, right? So our threat model doesn't include people getting into the Bitwarden. It's more so just, because like that's encrypted. Yeah. It's not, nobody's going through that much effort. But if there's like a password leak, it's just there. There's no effort. So two-factor authentication, super handy. And Bitwarden's autofill, like autofills the username, the password, and automatically copies the two-factor code to the clipboard. So as soon as you go to the next screen, you just paste it in there.
Man, that's convenient.
Oh my God.
That's convenient. Yes.
It's so good. One of the best things I think you'll find about it is that it integrates with the autofill services on iOS and Android. It also has extensions that work in Safari, Chrome, Vivaldi, Firefox, a whole bunch of those other ones.
Wow. So Edge, probably, right?
It does work in Edge as well.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Brave? Did you say Brave? Well, probably any Chromium-based.
I think it does work in Brave too, yeah. I haven't tested it personally, but I think I've seen somebody using it.
Okay. So. I figure that kind of thing has to be universal, right?
Exactly. And Face ID and Touch ID and what was the Android? I think Android is just called biometric login.
Yeah, it's such a sexy name. Windows Hello, Face ID, biometric login.
Biometric. That would be a song right there.
Hold on, let me write that down. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to thank our friends at TUXEDO Computers for making Linux for Everyone content possible. TUXEDO specializes in sleek Linux-first laptops, like the exceptional AMD Ryzen-powered Pulse 15 and the mighty Stellaris 15, which features a vivid 1440p display, your choice of 8-core processors from Intel or AMD, and up to an NVIDIA RTX 3080 for all the gorgeous gaming graphics you could possibly want. When Linux for Everyone was on the ropes, TUXEDO stepped in and helped out in a big way, and we are proud to call them a partner in this ongoing journey of ours. Go check them out at tuxedocomputers.com. Jerry.
Yeah, what's up?
Every episode we want to bring an awesome, maybe somewhat under the radar app, piece of software to people that makes their lives better, because that's what tech is for. And this time around, you've got something for us, right? A software spotlight?
Yeah, I do. I dabble in, I'm by no means a professional, but I do some photography and videography on the side, kind of for fun and for, kind of as a hobby. I don't remember how I stumbled upon this. I think when I kind of, a couple years ago, Jason would have been around probably when you and I met, and I was really trying to dive headfirst into like moving my audio workflow over to Linux.
Oh, yes.
And really just trying to think through of like, okay, what workflows do I have for creative work, and like what can I transfer over, and photography and video editing was another one of those. And actually photography, I think probably the audio there's plenty of fodder there for another segment.
There's another series for that. Yeah.
A whole other series. But photography is one of those areas where I've always kind of said, like, if photography was like the only thing that I did, I could absolutely use Linux 100% full time with the tools that they make available. Video editing is kind of another story for me, but photography, I felt like I feel like there's some wonderful tools that are free and open source that can go either go toe to toe with some of the paid applications that you get.
So you're talking about Adobe, right? Photoshop and Lightroom and
more so things along the line, like Lightroom. Photoshop, I don't feel like GIMP gets necessarily close to Photoshop. You have to break your way of thinking within, like, they don't map one to one without
right. But you don't hear people regularly say, like, oh yeah, Linux totally competes with Mac OS for video editing or for music production. But I do hear a lot of people say that the photography tools are top notch. So keep going.
Tools like Digicam and GIMP, and even stuff like Krita.
Darktable, right? Is it Darktable?
Darktable's the one. Like, what's the Raw Therapy is another one that's just so many great tools. So I stumbled upon this tool. It's called Rapid Photo Downloader, and it's kind of a random name. It's like it didn't. Does it rapidly download photos? Is that what it does? Or right, it pretty much does exactly what it says. And it's one of those tools that I have not found on. I have not found a suitable replacement on Mac OS or Windows. Like, it's Linux only. It actually does a whole lot of different kind of things rather than just downloading photos from your media. But I use it really for just a few basic parts of my workflow, but they're like indispensable. And a few of those things are like being able to sensibly name files and folders and like create folders on the fly as you're importing in your photos.
Like in a batch?
Yeah, in a batch. It'll do that, which is
That's
great.
Nice. Yeah.
It will the biggest thing, like, there's two parts of this. The biggest thing that like really just sold me on it is you can import from multiple devices. So multiple SD cards, or like an SD card and an iPhone, or different devices all at once. Like, you don't have to like do one and do the other. You can do them all at once. And then you can go into the, this is the big thing for me. Like, this seems such a small thing, but it's so huge. You can go in and set default locations for the different file types. So if I want pictures to go that's brilliant.
Folder,
it's fantastic. And I want videos to go to this folder, and it's all automatic. Like, it's like I go in and I set those default folders, and then I hit a button, and it pulls from the 4 devices that I have connected and puts pictures where I want them. It puts videos where I want them. It's fantastic. And then it will also copy as it's moving the media from your devices. You can set up backup locations. So if you have a NAS or you have a backup drive connected, it'll also copy at the same time to all of those different locations. It's just such.
It should be called like Rapid Photo Utility Belt or something.
Exactly.
Or Rapid Media Utility Belt. I don't know.
It's fantastic. Damon Lynch is the developer. He was featured on I Make False at one point.
Something we need to talk more about here.
Right. Yep. And so and I actually talked to him for a little bit. I was the one that kind of nominated him to be featured for the week, just because I value the tool so much, and I would love for some visibility on it. And I even asked him, I was like, do you have any plans to make this for Windows or Mac, or like to reach a bit of a wider audience maybe, or to get like just for somebody like me who bounces between all 3 operating systems pretty regularly, like that's a tool that's indispensable. And it's like I 100% miss when I'm not on a Linux box.
Okay.
And so he was just pretty much like, no,
but is
but
is it open source?
It is open source, so somebody I think.
Sure. So someone else can package that up for Mac OS and Windows if they want to, right?
Yeah. And so he's written it. I think it's written in Python. Maybe if I may be speaking completely.
I mean, it sounds super useful. I'm not a photographer, but I work with so much video.
Media.
Like I do a lot of shooting on my phone when it comes to, like when I'm doing a solo video or I'm doing product or reviews and I tend to import a lot of files that are just called like I don't know, vid _ whatever, and I would love to batch name those as I import them, right? And sure, I'd also like to back those up, and I'd also like to have those land in my videos folder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, this sounds super indispensable. That sounds wonderful.
It's great. It's fantastic. It's my favorite.
How's the UI on it?
It's actually not. It's not bad. It's got a little bit of that Windows 7.
Nothing wrong with Windows 7, folks.
No,
nothing wrong with that UI.
But it feels smartly laid out, and it feels very it's intuitive. Damon is a photographer, so he pretty much wrote a tool that he wanted to use and made it useful. Yeah, I mean the UIs. I've actually tried. So I've tried to get it running under the WSL 2 on Windows, but haven't had any luck. Even if I could run this as a Linux app in Windows 11, like that would be useful because I have access to the file system. I can set it to my, you know what I mean? Like that would be.
I feel bad because I still have not even once touched WSL on Windows. I guess because I can just use Linux. But I feel like as someone covering this space, I should check it out, especially with WSL-G now, which does all the GUI stuff.
Yeah, that's what I've tried to do.
But I guess it's not a guarantee that these apps will work, right?
And it might be some dependencies that Damon builds into his app.
Schykle, you're an amateur photographer.
Amateur is the key word.
I don't know if that sounds. I don't mean that to sound insulting. I've seen some of your photos and they're fantastic.
No, definitely.
Is that something that you would use, or do you have a different set of tools, different workflow that you use for your photography?
I've got a little bit of a weird thing. It's not a normal thing that I would expect people to set up, but so I have Wi-Fi on my DSLR. And that automatically dumps to my phone, which is sync thing backed up to my home machines. So all of the raw photos and files.
I love it. I love how complicated but glorious that sounds. I really do.
It's so weird. It really is.
The Schykle method.
I love it.
It basically means like I never like have to touch it. Like it's automatically imported and backed up. So it goes both to my Google Photos and to my sync thing at the same time, so I have multiple backups in different places.
That's cool.
And immediate local downloads of everything, so I don't have to like if my internet's out, I can still edit and whatnot. But it's mostly pictures of my cat, so I don't know, effort versus.
Those are priority. That's a priority. I think that's a priority. So anyway, check out Rapid Photo Downloader, and we'll have a link, of course. To that app in the description for this video or in the show notes for this episode. Wherever you're consuming this, we'll have a link for it. And Schykle, we have to say goodbye. Yes?
Yes,
all right,
indeed.
Man.
I got work to do.
Hey, it's good work. It's good work. Thank you for engineering happiness. I'm super happy you could join us. I wasn't expecting that, and tell Carl and Alex and Emma and all those guys and gals hello for us.
Yep.
Thanks,
all right, man.
Spam their DMs.
All right, dude. Thanks. We'll see you next time. We had an enormous amount of feedback from you guys after episode 54, after our discussion about the erosion of privacy that's happening in our lives online. And I just want to say it could take up an entire episode reading and dissecting and discussing all of the feedback that you guys gave. But I want to say that we all sincerely appreciate all the suggestions. We're still parsing it. And what we want to do is maybe highlight one or two of your emails. And as you guys know, I'm building a new website to kind of encompass all of the shows that are coming, Tech for Everyone and Games for Everyone and Linux for Everyone, and written content as well, written reviews and guides and news posts and a forum and all this stuff. What I'm going to promise to you guys is I'm going to take all of this knowledge that you shared with us, and I'm going to make kind of a wiki out of it and put it on the new site, because there's a ton. Like I can't even explain to you how much. I mean, people wrote 1,000-word emails with apps or websites or browser extensions with links to them and why they like them, and there was so much thought and effort put into this feedback, and I don't want it to go to waste. So. Yep. I'll keep you updated on that. Jerry, cool. I was wondering if you want to read one or two of these.
Sure. Yeah, we got an email here from Colin, which was super, super, super helpful and had a lot of really good info. So just going to read this here. It says, "Hey, L4E team. I just watched your last show on privacy and wanted to share some knowledge with you all, since it seems like each of you is just getting started with protecting yourselves online. Just like with Linux, privacy is a journey. Everyone that takes the journey will go at their own pace and end up in a different spot that is within their comfort zone," which I love that. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Privacy is a fundamental right for everyone. Even if you don't make it very far on your journey towards privacy, it's important that you set out and yet you are open to learning along the way. Gaining an understanding of how different companies/governments work and questioning their motives as you learn along the way is key to understanding how tech and services work for and against you, which is another.
Oh, that's kind of profound.
Yeah.
Like, I just have to let that sink in for a minute, how tech services work for and against you.
Yep. And it's weighing those options, weighing those two things against each other. Yep. With time, understanding, and baby steps, you can inspire yourself and others to make the digital world a better place for everyone. I use Linux because it is mine. I get to own it and do whatever I want with it. I am not the product. My OS does not spy on me, and I can tinker away. Open source, community driven equals win. So, yeah, Colin, thank you so much for that thoughtful email. That is
thank you, Colin.
Tasty nuggets there.
That's awesome, and there were so many more. Like I said, I'll give attention to those as best I can. Colin, I did want to address you directly though. The rest of your email, you were talking about the Nitro phone, and they are actually sending me one with Graphene OS, and. As you probably figured out by now, I got the EOD phone, and that has, you were suggesting the Aurora Store and F-Droid, and that actually comes bundled. Both of those stores come bundled with this phone. So I will definitely give you my impressions as I move into it and start checking it out. Okay, well, this is probably going to be a super long episode. So I'm going to move this directly into my conversation with Mycroft AI co-founder, Joshua Montgomery. And Jerry, I think this will be it for you on this episode. I'm not sure. Guys, I have like 4 or 5 pieces of this, and I'm just... It's been recorded in all different places and times.
Work me in where you feel best, Jason.
But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the show. Yep. And Jerry, thank you as always for being here.
So good to be here. We'll see you next time.
Enjoy your new MacBook.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, dude.
So we'll see you, Jason. Thanks.
See ya. In addition to TUXEDO computers and our friends in the community, Linux for Everyone is also made possible by Linode. If it runs on Linux, you can run it on Linode. They have multiple distros available, including Ubuntu, CentOS, Alpine, and Arch, by the way. They've got multiple server plans to make any app or service flexible and easily scalable. You can use a Linode server to easily set up a WordPress-powered website, your own personal VPN, a dedicated Jitsi or Minecraft server, and much more that you can get installed with a single click. Linode has 24/7, 365 support available by phone, regardless of your plan size, so you can get help from a real person when you need it. Right now, Linux for Everyone fans who are opening a brand new account can get a $100 60-day credit by going to linode.com/Linux for everyone. Linode's been doing cloud computing since 2003, before Amazon even entered the picture. So they're not trying to take over the retail world like other companies. They're just focused on good old-fashioned, Linux-loving cloud computing. Go to linode.com/Linux for everyone to get started building your new project. It's where we host all of ours, and we're proud to call them a longtime partner. I am very, very honored to be joined by the co-founder of Mycroft AI and esteemed children's book author, Josh Montgomery. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Jason?
Good, really good. I finally have. This is the best, cleanest looking office backdrop that I've had yet, and so I'm very, very happy. I got these sound panels up this week, and it's really nice to finally be able to use them. And
they look nice, and they're Mycroft blue, and they're actually the right shape. They're the shape of the Mycroft logo, right? So I love them.
Cool, very cool. So I'm happy to finally be able to connect with you. We've been trying to do this for probably a few months now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm connecting from a place that's not nearly as tidy, but behind me there's.
To be fair, though, you are in Hawaii, and I am not. So we all have our pros and cons here.
That is true. It is a good place to build a tech company in post-COVID America. So
Why is that? Just out of curiosity, why is that a good place?
So for a couple of reasons. So one of them is that Southwest Airlines launched direct service in and out of Kona, Hawaii, to
all right.
Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles, where you can change planes and get to 40 other cities in the U.S. on the same day. So that was one of the things that kind of opened our eyes to this being a viable place to build a tech company. Mm-hmm. San Francisco's really become unlivable in a lot of ways. You know, we were there for a couple of years, and between the traffic and the cost of living, you know, it really has become a community that's very difficult to live in. Even, you know,
That's
when you
a
have
shame.
two people who are married, who have, you know, technology type salaries. And then, you know, the idea for us was to go someplace that had great quality of life, where we could get directly in and out of San Francisco and LA if we needed to. You know, Amazon Prime delivers direct. And so, you know, with 60% of online retail purchases starting at Amazon.com. In other words, 6 out of 10 people on the world that decide to buy something online
In the
first place to go.
Did you say in the world, not in the country?
Well, that might not include China, in fairness.
That's fair. That's fair.
But
Okay.
But yeah, they start on Amazon.com, and so you know you really do have to think about, you know, I can't go in Hawaii. You can't go to the local hardware store and buy a pack of resistors, right? Because you know the investment bankers ran Radio Shack out of business. And so, you know, it is important to be able to get long tail retail, like all the little bits and pieces and parts that it takes to run a tech company, and that weighed into it too. And then finally, you know, in San Francisco, you know, we had a little 3-bedroom tear down house in Palo Alto. The house was so bad that 3 months after we moved out, it burned down in the middle of the night of its own accord. And you know, the rent on that place was $6,000 a month. And so
That's not even.
You know,
that's more of a dare. That's not even. That's just someone making a dare. Like, I dare you to live on you know, with this kind of mortgage. That's insane.
yeah, well, it wasn't even a mortgage. It's just rent. Like you can't even buy things there. The vacant lot at the end of our street in Palo Alto sold for $10 million. It was a 1-acre lot. And so, you know, by the standards of the Bay Area or Seattle or LA, Hawaii is very affordable. For less than that little teardown house, you know, we ended up purchasing a 5-acre coffee farm that's, you know, in production, and we're raising our kids here. And then, you know, I guess finally there's very little gun violence and very little violence of any kind here on Long Island.
Huge plus, yes. Can you speak a little bit about the origins of Mycroft? What prompted that? What prompted you to want to get into this specific industry?
Because we started an internet service provider in 2006 to do an internet service for low-income families, you know, we were in a financial position with a lot of customers at the university and a lot of students, where we could build this entrepreneurship center. And the idea of the center was we'd have a place for you to work, like a typical co-working space. We have a data center where entrepreneurs could put actual iron and you know, run 10 gigs of fiber and really do cool things. This is kind of before virtualization was really as universal as it is today. And then, we had a makerspace, and the idea was you could build anything, like anything you wanted, up to and including a nuclear weapon, although we did have rules about explosives and radio isotopes on the premises. But the idea was we would have all the machinery and the stuff you'd need to do it. And so, 3D printers, and actually I kind of picked up roots and moved a lot of that here. So, I've got lasers and 3D printers and things here in the facility in Hawaii. Dave had this like hacked together Cortana thing in his space that you could hit a button and it would like announce over the ceiling, like, hey, it's time to close, or, the cake, there will be cake at the end of the adventure. And so, I looked at it and I was like, hey, I want that, but I want to do something more. And, this was shortly after Iron Man had come out, and, we wanted to build Jarvis from Iron Man, right, into our space. At the time, the only voice tech out there was Siri, right, which was locked onto Apple's phones. And so, the smart speaker as a concept didn't exist. And so we went out to build this smart speaker. We wanted to make it cute. We wanted to make it personable. So we were inspired by things like Wall-E and
what inspiration.
Short Johnny Five from Short Circuit and E.T.
Awesome.
And then we went out to like talk to people about what we were doing, and we were super lucky. When we got started, we'd have to explain to our community or our audience, what a smart speaker was, right? It sits in the corner and it plays music, but you can also talk to it and you can ask it questions. And it just came off as sort of crazy or sort of like super future fantastic science fiction. And I had some of the most sophisticated venture capitalists in the world tell me that smart speakers would be a niche market. Right? Nobody was going to want one of these things. That like the whole idea of people spying on you in your home, right? And then Amazon ran their Super Bowl ad with Alec Baldwin in 2016, and it went overnight from people saying niche market, no one's going to want one, to people saying this market is so huge and all these companies are so enormous that there can never be an independent player. And that switch happened over a weekend. Like Friday it was one, and Monday it was another. And so, we set out to build it, the way that I build things, right? Which is, with a community of people with, an eye towards not how we can benefit us as a family or us as founders, but how we can benefit the broader community. And from there, successful Kickstarters, we've raised quite a bit of money. We released and shipped the Mark I, crossing fingers about supply chain issues, but, assuming that we can thread that needle, the Mark II will ship probably sometime next year, mid-year next year. And then, of course, in the meantime, we built a complete open voice assistant stack, like top to bottom, which is really excited. And by we, I don't mean Mycroft or me or Ryan or but by we, I mean this community of 60,000 developers who have contributed.
60,000 developers?
Yes. So we have 66,000 people in our community. Wow. And I think maybe developers is a bit. Contributors, right? Yeah, I think contributors is right, because the idea at Mycroft is not that you have to be able to write in Python or C or contribute like the type of deep expertise that someone who develops software has, right? What we set out to do is a place where by default we collect no information about our customers, right? Like nothing. We're not listening to those microphones. We don't keep logs any longer than we need to serve a query. But people can contribute by opting to share their data, right? So if they come and they affirmatively say, hey, look, I want to make this better, I'm going to share my data with the company, I trust you with my privacy, and they check the share back box, that's contributing, right? Because now they're contributing data to the machine learning algorithm.
What specifically are they contributing as far as data?
In that case, we would get the audio of the wake word attempt. So if somebody says Minecraft or Microsoft and it triggers the audio, we would get that. We get the audio of the query as well as the text transcription. So if they say play, Sand Dune it plays Sand Dune from Spotify, right?
Okay.
We would get the audio sample in the text transcription. And then in theory, in the future, we would actually get a log back saying that it had gone out to Spotify, selected Sand Dune, and was had properly played it, right? Right now, we don't get that piece of it.
Is there any personally identifiable information in that data that you receive that can be traced like directly, like to a physical address or a name or anything in that.
Only if they actually spoke the identifiable data. So we don't have any way to suss that out at the moment, right?
Okay,
So if you said, hey, Mycroft, my address is, 10 Main Street, right? So contributing data is one way people contribute, and we view that as probably the largest community of contributors as we grow that we're going to build, right? The next step up is actually classifying that data, right? Because to make these algorithms better, somebody's got to listen to those and say, they said Minecraft or Microsoft, not Mycroft, right? And so, we built some tools early on that allow the community to do that. A community member logs in, we give them a random sample.
Okay.
In case of the wake word, they say this was either, the joke from that Silicon Valley TV show, right? Hot dog, not a hot dog.
Do pizza.
Let's do pizza.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Zach.
Not hot dog. That's it. It only does hot dogs.
No, and a not hot dog.
So either Mycroft or not Mycroft, and then we take that and we use it to improve that underlying algorithm, right? And there's a lot of other places there where there are real opportunities for us to build tools for the community to contribute, right? Like, looking at an audio sample, and if it was mistranscribed, properly transcribing it so we can feed it back into the speech recognition engine, translating that query from one language to another, right, is another place where the community can contribute. And not only from like English to, because one of the reasons actually we ended up here in Hawaii as well, Jason, I didn't mention, is because we want to support Hawaiian as a language, right? Like the big players aren't supporting, the languages that have smaller speaking communities. And there's like 4,000 languages globally, and the big players are supporting about 40 or 50.
Just supporting that 40 or 50 is probably a gargantuan task, right?
It probably is, but I mean, also look at their P&L. And here in Hawaii, there's a lot of politics around colonialization, right? But yeah, like when you only support the 40 languages of the countries that colonized Earth, right, and you leave off all the people who got colonized, like that certainly is a moral statement about where you stand on the value of those people's culture, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the idea is that you could translate it from whatever language it's in to whatever other language you speak. So if you speak Hawaiian and Russian, and we have a bunch of Russian queries, you can translate those into Hawaiian, and eventually that data set will probably be really valuable for building open source natural language transcription software, right? Like the data set itself. And then finally, people who can help to improve the machine learning, the black boxes, right? The trained algorithms. And then folks who write in Python and C and can really contribute to the underlying foundational software. So the idea is that as a member of the Mycroft community, all you have to do is be able to speak a language, and you can contribute. And then if you've got really deep skills in some obscure COBOL, right, like we're porting Mycroft to mainframes, you can come in and work on the mainframe computer and program Mycroft to run on an old AS400, right?
Oh man, that's cool.
Please
cool.
Nobody do that. Don't spend it.
The open source and Linux community, more than any other community, I think, is very wary of words like telemetry and data collection. Because we know that those can be used for good and for evil, and they can be misused. And I'm going to take a kind of a strange stance as someone in the Linux community, and I see the benefit of collecting telemetry. I see the benefit to developers, to products, growth, and improvement.
So it's a life safety issue for some people, right? For people who are living in Myanmar right now, or people who are in Hong Kong and protesting for democracy.
Yeah.
The idea that their telemetry is going out, the intelligence agencies have proven themselves to be very astute at sussing out, opposition, based simply on what phone numbers call what phone numbers, right? Like they don't even need to know the contents of the conversation. It's enough to just have the addresses at either end. So, I would argue that those folks, especially in places where it's life safety, have a point, and that we should be building technologies that can run entirely offline and still provide a great experience. So That being said, there's a lot of people in the world that live in democracies and in countries that are safe and where dissent is protected. And, in those places, there's benefits to the power of the crowd, right? And what we've seen at, the big tech companies is that, having the ability to take all this information, to aggregate it, to use it to train some of these modern neural networks, is very, very powerful when it comes to providing quality services for people, right?
Sure.
Not for users, for people. And, we as an open source community need to build tools that allow people to contribute their data in a way that's safe and protects their privacy to a reasonable level. An important piece of that is the right to be forgotten, right? That once that data is contributed, that doesn't need to be the end of the story. That we need to provide tools that say, hey, look, like my situation has changed. That boyfriend that I loved so much a year ago turned out to be abusive, and I need to protect myself from that person. And so, I'm going to switch my settings to private, and then all of that data from, the prior years of use, evaporates from the global community's data set, right?
Are those options in place?
We do have the right to be forgotten. And,
not just with you, but I'm talking about kind of the larger big tech, the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks.
They say they are.
Yes, right? They say they are.
And in my view, those folks have a credibility problem. I mean, people talk about some of these big tech companies, and I'm going to pick on Google here for a second. So guys, please don't sue me. But Google is under indictment in all 50 states, the European Union, and by the federal government of the United States. They've paid hundreds of millions of dollars in fines over the past 10 years for things like illegally pushing drugs, right? Like, one of the biggest fines ever levied by the federal government of the United States up until recently was against Google for, building advertising tools that allowed people to illegally push prescription drugs through their platform, right? These folks are convicted and indicted criminals, right? They're criminals. And so, they definitely have a credibility problem. And, and even Facebook is another example. I had a Facebook profile, and I used it for a number of years. And several years ago, I stopped, right? I viewed it as just toxic and poisonous. But I swear to God, they still have all my info. Like when I've had to go to that website periodically, they still have my picture and my profile. And, they claim that it's been deleted. But once again, Facebook is under indictment, or has been divided and convicted, right? Like, do you believe them?
That data is far too valuable to them. Believe me, it's.
What's a shame about it is it would be such a small change in Facebook's case to accommodate everybody, right? Like if Facebook simply said, "Hey, look, you can control your newsfeed. We're not going to push stuff into your newsfeed and poison the rhetoric for our own benefit." And if they said, instead of getting paid by advertising to you, you can pay us $9 a month and we'll protect your privacy. You won't see any ads. I mean, hell, I'd be a Facebook user again. Honestly, I really it's as simple as that. And so, they won't do that. So that really does go to your point just now, Jason, which is the data is really, really valuable to them.
Our last episode of Linux for Everyone was focused entirely on the erosion of privacy. But one of the only bright spots of the episode was Jerry brought up iOS 14.5, which is Apple started kind of closing off the trackers, like blocking the trackers from tracking customer usage and behavior across different apps that were installed on the phone, building a an advertising profile. And you do that, of course, by simply every time you open up the app or the first time you open up the app, it's ask this app not to track me or whatever. The keyword there being ask. Jerry was very enthusiastic about it, and said that hopefully it would pave the way for other companies. And I assumed that because Facebook was moaning so much about this iOS update and apologizing to all of their partners and advertisers on the platform, I assumed, well, it must be working, right? But then this study on lockdown privacy came out, and they basically say, we found that app tracking transparency made no difference in the total number of active third-party trackers and had a minimal impact on the total number of tracking connection attempts. We further confirmed that detailed personal or device data was being sent to trackers in almost all cases. And it pretty much said, like, there's maybe like 5% less tracking activity when you ask the app not to track you. It's meaningless.
Well, and it's because regulation is toothless, right? So I was reading yesterday, the day before, Facebook had been fined $14 million. I mean, that seems like a lot of money, right?
No, not for them.
For illegally something to do with employment. Like they had reclassed employees as 1099 instead of W-2 or whatever. And I just laughed. Like $14 million for Facebook is, several minutes of revenue in any given year. The regulators, have really become toothless. And I'm a big advocate for the death penalty. And by the death penalty, I mean the corporate death penalty, right? Not the human death penalty, but the corporate death penalty. Governments need to start issuing the death penalty to corporations that behave in ways that damage our society. A company, they get a bunch of opportunities, like they go through the legal system, but if it's decided that a company...
Like maybe 3 strikes or something, right?
If 3 strikes work for the guy who shoplifted at Walmart, like why not for a major, global corporation that's got, billions of dollars for legal compliance? Seems fair to me, right? But whatever that criteria is, when an organization, and I'm going to point the finger at Facebook, like Facebook, is proven to be toxic to democracy, toxic to the people who use it, toxic to the broader community, is unwilling to follow the rules, pays fines like it's, like you and I would pay a parking ticket, and continues in that behavior for a certain period of time, you're done. We liquidate you. You're done. And watch how fast companies come into compliance when you kill a couple of them. And corporations look at other corporations and they look at the results and watch how fast their corporate compliance departments are like, oh wow, like we can't do any of this anymore, guys. Like we're all not going to have jobs.
I wish I wish that even sounded like a realistic possibility in the States. I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
the
I
United
feel
States has a religion, and the religion is capitalism.
The internet would break if you killed Google right now. It would break.
It did 2 weeks ago with Facebook.
Yeah.
Right? Like it went down and like people were using Facebook for authentication and like all of a sudden all their stuff broke.
It's wild, the ripple effect that just doing something like logging into Facebook has on. Anyway, all right, let's
well, hold on. I want to back that up because I want to change subjects and talk about security for a second.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
Facebook dorked a BGP route, right? Like they dorked their BGP advertising, which is, as a guy who runs an ISP, fairly easy to do, unintentionally. And from what I heard, and this may be apocryphal, so let's keep it in the realm of, rumor and fiction, was that they had to go get a bunch of grinders out and cut the doors off to get into the facility
because they couldn't. They were using their own.
Right?
Yeah, they were on their own intranet or whatever it is to authenticate, and it was broken. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, and as a guy who's actually had to do that, not with a grinder, but actually like had to bring a locksmith out to unlock a facility that had gone off net and couldn't unlock itself, I've actually had to do it at the ISP. Like I have a lot of sympathy, but that's what happens when somebody unintentionally dorks a BGP route or a BGP advertisement. Imagine what happens when a nation state actor goes after the broader BGP cloud. Right. And people should be thinking about that in terms of vulnerability, because as we found, recently from Department of Homeland Security here in the United States, who we've given trillion or billions or hundreds of billions of dollars to secure us. Like when they had a security problem, they sent guys who are GS7, which is effectively the pay scale of the janitorial staff, to go and deal with it. Right. These are the same people that we've got running our cybersecurity. Right. Like, it's something to really think about. If Facebook could dork their entire network with one inadvertent BGP advertisement, imagine what the FSB, the Russian intelligence service, could do if they were doing it intentionally. And people should be thinking about that because our lives are very dependent on these technologies and these tech companies. Everything from our supply chains that make our food and the products we eat to our transportation that makes the trains run on time.
We are.
If you're looking...
I swear to God, we're slowly headed towards. I feel like we're in the very opening minutes of like every post-apocalyptic movie ever made. Just the opening minutes, and the opening minutes have been the last 10 years in our timeline. But it just there's so many of these red flags and warnings that are going off, and I just It's a little scary. I'm smiling. I'm smiling with dread in my head.
Well, one of the best books out there, and if I'm sure as Linux community, like people are science fiction fans, Mycroft, by the way, is named after the AI in Robert Heinlein's 65 book, Munis the Harsh Mistress. But if you go and read Werner Vinge's A Rainbow's End, Werner Vinge is a fantastic author, former math professor. He's won the Hugo and the Nebula Award a couple times. But Rainbow's End is like a near future science fiction book. And one of the things that happens in that book is a certificate attack, right? So in the world that he builds, there's a hardware encryption layer or a hardware security layer. And you can revoke a security certificate and break communications for big chunks of the internet. And as you read his book, which is very fanciful, right? Simply pulling a certificate can shut the trains down, right? Shuts the water down, because the trust relationships between all these systems break. I found that book to be a really revealing in terms of what the future of self-driving cars, right to repair, future of medicine, future of artificial intelligence. Like it's a fantastic read, and I strongly recommend people.
I will check it out. I wrote it down. I'm gonna recommend. Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna recommend it until I read it, but I wrote it down. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I have another book. I'll transition to it.
Remember when I said esteemed children's author? Mycroft
yes.
and the Patent Trolls. Could you read us maybe? Can you do like a reading like you would if you're on a book tour and you go to a little mom and pop bookstore and read a few pages?
Sure. This will actually be the first time I've done this on camera for anybody. So
awesome.
I start at the beginning because I think this part's extremely important. The book's dedicated to the EFF and Unified Patents, Knights in Armor fighting trolls for people like you and me. Once upon a time, there were 3 children named Dunker, Jasmine, and Lee. All 3 of them respected their teachers and studied hard and got to go to a special school where they learned how to create golden papers called patents. A patent is a special paper stamped by the king that helps inventors take ideas and make them real. Of course, only the best, most useful, greatest, and inventive ideas are supposed to become patents. And so the king has a room full of examiners who make sure that only good, smart, and useful ideas get the king's stamp of approval. But Dunker and Jasmine discovered that the examiners were too busy to check on each and every idea, so they took some obvious ideas and tricked the examiners into stamping them for the king. We don't need to have new ideas, said Dunker. We can patent old ideas and use them to make people give us their gold. Dunker and Jasmine spent so much time scheming for gold that soon they became ugly, their backs grew bent, and they grew warts on their noses and became trolls. So that's the opening section of the book. There are knights in shining armor and a sudden revelation from the king and a big invention called Newegg, and I will keep the end a mystery.
Well, now I'm curious. Now I'm very curious.
I will. You can buy the book on Amazon. Unfortunately, Amazon, or you can buy it from actually any local bookseller because we're distributing through Igram, both in the United States.
That's great. That's cool. Is that relatively new? That book, or?
Yeah, we published it about 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
We're engaged in 11 separate legal actions against a patent troll in Texas, whose behavior inspired this book. And what that patent troll did was, after Siri came out, he worked with a group of other attorneys, and they had intellectual property issued that was obvious, right? It was effectively they patented Siri 4 or 5 years after Siri came out, and they did that by effectively tricking the examiners and getting them to stamp it good. And they approached us for a licensing fee. And the alternative to paying the $30,000 licensing fee was $2 million in litigation. Now, we're really lucky. You haven't met our other founder, Michael Lewis, but Michael founded Stellar Semiconductor in the 1990s, one of the early 3D graphics companies, and sold it to Broadcom for a sizable payment. And then he founded Cryptic Studios, which did the MMO City of Heroes.
Oh, yeah.
Which came out right around the sun. Yeah.
What?
So, and
I had no idea.
He sold that to Atari and for another sizable check in the 2010s. And And so, we're in a position where, and Michael's the CEO. I've moved into a founder role and primarily do this, right? I get to talk to the people who use
the fun stuff. Tech. Yes.
Yeah, this is my favorite part, man, is communicating what we do. So we have the financial resources to go ahead and stand on principle. And so, we decided to litigate. It looks like both of the patents that this crew had issued are actually going to be invalidated, so they'll be revoked. We've already beat him in court twice on the patent side. The first because he filed in the wrong venue. The second because he didn't file with enough information. We're about to hand them their third loss. And then there's a bunch of other legal actions that are going on related to the case, with the idea at the end of this being, to hold, somebody who's abusing the legal system accountable for abusing it for their own benefit. So if folks want to support that, they can buy the book on our website, at which point we get all the revenue. So that's fantastic.
Thank you for fighting that fight. I'm sure that I and many others appreciate it. Well, speaking of knights in shining armor, we have to turn this around. We have to make this a little more positive. So you got to tell us, like, how is Mycroft AI making this a better world for people who are so frustrated with their privacy being eroded and unsure of what to trust or who to trust?
Sure. So a couple of things. So, one of the ways that you can enforce privacy is by providing transparency, right? When you look at, RSA security and you look at the types of modern encryption, like an encryption algorithm is not useful until it's been vetted by, a broad community of security experts, right? Everybody gets to see the foundational math and the foundational software. And, they look at it and say, if this is properly implemented, this does create a secure channel, right? And we feel the same way about the voice assistant and the voice technology space. You have this smart speaker or a voice assistant on your phone, or now they're on TVs and microwaves and all over the place, 24 hours a day listening to what you're doing, right? And so in my view, the only way to make sure that people's privacy is preserved is to make that technology transparent, so that security experts and privacy advocates can dig through the software and see, this is how it works. And if properly implemented, you're right, this doesn't send your information to a third party, for example. And so, at Mycroft, we're transparent, we're open source. We're, from a licensing standpoint, we're also open. The software's free as well as being open, so people can use it how they choose to use it. You can set Mycroft up to run entirely on site, and we have people who've done that so that no data ever leaves your local network. Either as an individual, we've had some developers do that, or as, we've been working with hospital systems that deploy smart speakers, want to put them in patient rooms, but don't want confidential medical data to go to our friends at big tech companies, right?
Right.
So
as far as I'm sorry to interrupt you. As far as I'm aware, that's not a service or feature that any of your Alexas or Siris or Google Assistants can offer, right?
They have a lot of trouble with the HIPAA stuff because their business model in almost every case is built on spying on people. And so when your business model is based on spying them, I mean, if people give you something for free, you think that those Amazon or those Echo Dots or those little Google Home Minis that cost like $15, you think they really cost $15, or you think they're getting paid some other way, right? So, the privacy aspects are really important. In hospital settings, the ability to run it independent of the internet's important in settings like cruise ships.
Right? Oh, wow. Yeah.
Hotels are another place where people aren't really, there are people who value privacy staying in those hotel rooms. They don't really want our friends in Seattle listening to everything they do and say in a hotel room. I mean, half of the things that go on in hotel rooms, nobody wanted people to see, right?
Are you citing these as like existing industries that you're partnered with, or just potential?
Yeah, so
possibilities.
We've been working with hospital systems. We've had some queries from cruise ship integrators. We're not really across the line with the quality of our product yet to go there.
Okay.
We've been working with automakers, who look at Silicon Valley and say, they ate the news industry. They ate they're eating the transportation industry with Uber and Lyft and Waymo. it's only a certain matter of time before they eat the auto industry. Is it really wise for us to put always listening microphones in the dashes of these cars and pass all the data off to the valley? We're going to be competing against them in 10 minutes, right? And so, forward-thinking executives are looking at these technologies and saying, how do we build something that's independent? And then they call me. So we have a ton of demand for what we're doing.
Because I up until now, I couldn't really see the revenue model for Mycroft AI, aside from, the hardware sales, but we know the hardware sales are going to be a drop in the bucket, more of a proof of concept or, flagship product to show the AI at work. But yeah, that sounds a little more like a solid revenue stream for you guys.
Yeah, the for us on the money side of things, on the back end, the eventual goal is to partner with folks like Deezer. If anybody out there is listening from Deezer, we would love to hear from you.
I have several. I will spread that word. I have a few patrons who just adore Deezer, and
yeah, we would love to hear from Deezer, specifically Deezer, because they have such a great product and such a great catalog, and they're in the EU and independent of Spotify. But the idea is that we can bundle a music service with folks who choose to use our backend. So people who really don't want to set up their own server infrastructure, and that's kind of a pain, right? They just want to have a smart speaker and have it work and not worry about people spying on them. That uses our backend called Selene. We want to be able to bundle some music services and some other enhanced services with Selene, and then have people who choose to use those services pay a monthly fee. That's one piece. Another is, you're right, hospitals and cruise lines and hotels, and we have been working with NASA. I mean, there's a lot of applications for voice assistants that require either being off the network or where they want enhanced privacy or control of their brands, as an example, right? Like they want to build their own voice and their own wake word. Those are all opportunities. And then in terms of how we get big, one of the things we found is that the venture capitalists in the Valley, and we do have some venture capital in the company, like a few funds, but nothing we were very careful not to take enough money from VC that any of them have enough power to make us do anything at all, right? And so we've used crowdfunding almost exclusively, both for pre-selling our products, but then also for funding the company. And so the idea is that, the people who use our technology, the people who believe in our technology, the people who believe in privacy can become investors in the company, and that there are enough of those people that, we can raise the meaningful amounts of money it takes to do something in this space that's relevant, right? So we're raising money on Start Engine right now, startengine.com, or you can go to our website, hit the little invest now, and would love to have anybody who's listening who believes in privacy, who believes in user agency, who believes that there can be open alternatives to big tech, to come and become an investor. And, if we win, they win. And in the meantime, they get to come along for the ride, right? So it's always fun to have more people on the roller coaster of the startup.
Yeah, there are open alternatives to big tech, but the question is, are they competitive enough to be viable alternatives, right? I mean, that's something that we were discussing in our last show as well, is that at some point I feel like if you want a free, privacy-respecting, open-source alternative to all of the big tech offerings, you're probably going to have to pony up some cash for that so that they can bring their product up to a level where you would actually want to use it instead of the big tech offerings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can't rely on being private or being open to get you from here to there if the experience that the people who are using the technology is getting is terrible relative to the big tech companies. And it has to be, at least in this, it doesn't have to be in the same league, but you have to be at least playing the same sport, right?
Yeah.
And so the it's important, people believe in privacy. It's one thing to run around and say privacy this, privacy that. Like if you really believe in it, open your wallet. Mm-hmm. Right? Because, I guarantee you the guys who don't respect privacy are getting big paydays. And so, like, if you believe in it, open your wallet. And, for a lot of the people who do believe in it, $500 investment or subscribing to a $10 a month service, I mean, that's a rounding error if you're a modern machine learning developer who's being fairly paid, right? So like open up your wallet and come play, and let's see what we can build as a community together.
I would wager a guess that a large part of my audience, and this was me included for a while, a large part of my audience, when they hear Mycroft, they think of a certain Alan Pope.
Hey Mycroft, what are beans?
Beans serving size 130g, total calories 132, fat calories 4%, daily value ***, total fat 433 mg, 1%, saturated fat 61 mg, 0%, trans fat, cholesterol 0g, 0%, sodium 264 mg, 11%, total carbohydrates 25g,
shut up.
8%, dietary fiber 7g,
Mycroft.
27%,
Shut up.
sugar 1g, protein 8g,
Mycroft.
15%.
I've heard enough about beans.
2%.
And I think most people associate Mycroft with the Mark I product, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to think about, what does an ecosystem look like? An open, privacy-respecting ecosystem. Like, say, for example, I'm using Kubuntu 2110 here on my laptop. I'm getting a Fairphone, maybe with Graphene OS, or I'm getting something with Ubuntu Touch or Pure OS or any of the alternative mobile operating systems. Is it possible to easily integrate a voice assistant like Mycroft into all of that?
So I think we're a little ways away from it happening. One of the things that's really limited our ability to grow is having a platform to grow on, right? Like, we can't be shipped, the Androids and the iOSs of the world won't give us access to the microphone 24/7, right? So it makes it almost impossible. And I would argue that that's in violation of international law and violation on anti-competitive. It's anti-competitive, but I don't have, I'm willing to fight this patent troll, but I'm not willing to fight Apple and Google right now.
Probably
but
wise,
I think that the guys at Epic are probably both happy and sad that they took those two to town. But yeah, an open ecosystem, number one, is possible. We work very closely with the KDE team, the Blue Systems team, on integrating. They're doing a lot of the graphic stuff on the new smart speaker, and then like building. Building portable. Yeah.
Plasma. You're talking about Plasma Mobile?
So it's running Qt on top of KDE's rendering engine on top of their Plasma rendering.
Oh, that's awesome. So, that's cool. Okay.
So yeah.
Very cool.
And the KDE team or the Blue Systems team has been really heavily involved in building all of that stuff and building all the graphic controls and things like that. We've been working with them very closely since 2018, so the last three or 4 years.
Right on.
They've also built a Mycroft-powered smart display, so they've got the big screen that you can use voice technology on. So a lot of that stuff is coming. I think that in order for us to get to wide-scale adoption, we need some bigger corporates to come out and play. So, we need a TV company that sees a future that's not the TVs are currently in a race to the bottom to see which TV can spy on you more. So like I recently set up a Sony and there must have been like 5 privacy agreements I had to click through that thing in order to, and that's very much playing big tech's game. Yeah. Right. That's what big tech wants, right? Like they'll inhabit your technologies right up until it makes sense for them to clone them. Then they'll clone them and put you out of business or make you irrelevant. Yeah. So yeah, we'd love to have some of these, even if they're smaller players, speaker companies like Klipsch, right? Or, display makers that are making niche displays, come out and say, hey, look, like we want to do an open alternative. And, our friends at Amazon do allow multiple voice assistants to run on a device. So there's no reason these companies can't support Mycroft. Somebody in management needs to make that decision. And I think as more companies stand up and say, hey, like we want to name our voice assistant Al, and, we want it to have the voice of an American trucker, or we want to name our voice assistant Astani, and we want it to have the voice of a Argentine cowboy, right? I think that opens up doors for us to be relevant. And so, we become relevant because we work with big customers, and we become relevant because we've got this huge community of, people who've invested, people who are customers, people who are contributing data. That's what makes us relevant, not Michael's checkbook.
Right. Yeah. I just that's a scenario that I dream of. Maybe I don't know, someday down the road, Mycroft is shipped in Fedora, which is sold by Lenovo. I don't know. We need that alternative. We really, really need one. What can the larger Linux and open source community, and I shouldn't even say just the Linux and open source community, really. I should say anyone who wants a privacy respecting device like this, a voice assistant, what can we all do to kind of raise the profile of what you're doing, to raise awareness?
So there's a variety of different things for people who work at some of these companies, right? Because there's a lot of people in the open source community who, in their private capacity, really support open and private, and then they go to work for the man, right, during the day. If those folks would stand up and advocate and say, hey, look, here's the strategic reasons that we should be working with an open voice assistant company, right? That we don't want to be beholden to big tech, that we want to be able to control our brand. We want to be able to make new voices. We want, I'm willing to stand up and, lead a project to port Mycroft to, whatever, the RISC processor. That would be huge, right? Two, also advocating within those folks who could be partners. So Deezer is a great example, but there are, everything from weather data to, build it, Wikipedia, right? Better integrating with Wikipedia for voice. All of that would be huge. And so folks who have those jobs, we'd love to see that type of activity. Folks who can write software, who are great at it, come to our GitHub and don't, we love creative contributions. Like Mycroft tells Chuck Norris jokes. It's fantastic. But we have a long list of bugs and problems that need to be fixed. And it's much more useful to the broader community for people to pick up a tough bug and go solve it than it is for them to build some new novel feature that then we're going to have to support, right, long term. So folks who can write software, we'd love to have them contribute. Folks who want to, show that there's demand, you can pre-order a Mark II on our website for $1, right? And you don't pay for it until we actually ship it.
$1, folks. The Steam Deck, you had to deposit $5 to reserve that thing. So
yeah,
$1.
Exactly. And yeah, so your risk is $1, and we already have it's north of 1 million and maybe as much as $2 million in pre-orders. So there's a lot of people out there that are looking for a privacy respecting smart speaker. We're standing up manufacturing with our partner Aztec this year, and as soon as the supply chain loosens up and we can actually, it's so funny, we use a TI amplifier in the speaker, and it's like a 70-cent part, right? It's the type of thing that you'd be able to buy in bucket loads 3 years ago. And our Dwayne, who's running our fabrication team, just sent me an email the other day. He's like, I was able to get 1,000 of these. Oh my God, we're so lucky. And we're just like,
so you're just kind of stockpiling whatever you can right now, basically.
Yeah,
right?
anytime any part that we're using becomes available, we just reach out and buy them all. But yeah, when supply chains loosen up and that manufacturing process kicks off, that'd be great. And then, folks who do have the luxury and the privilege of being able to make investments, we would love to have them as investors in Mycroft. I think the minimum investment's $500. Don't invest your retirement savings in grandma's pension fund, but if you've got an extra $500 lying around and you were going to get on Robinhood and play with AMC and GameStop, we would much appreciate you becoming a long-term investor in Mycroft. Get some of that money out of Tether. And I cannot highlight to people, don't put money in Tether. It is a musical chairs scheme, and eventually the music will stop. And it's not like one person's going home. There's only one chair, dude. So, but yeah, if you've got your money in Tether, it might make more sense to put it into a company that's, building stuff. So, yeah.
This is a question born out of ignorance because I don't have any personal experience with Mycroft. Can a Mycroft device be used in conjunction with Home Assistant?
Yes, there's a big innovation project. And actually, one of the things we're really excited about is that both Home Assistant and Caldi really don't have a hardware device right now. Like Home Assistant makes I think it's like a shell for the Raspberry Pi,
Yeah.
But the last I checked, and this may have changed, they didn't really have something you could buy like a SmartThings hub, right? You could just go to the website and buy it and have it show up. And so when we ship the Mark II, one of the things we're looking at is creating a build for it that basically, if you want to be a Home Assistant user and you want that same basic experience that you'd get with SmartThings, right? Like it's all nice and gooey and you don't want to build stuff, you just want to plug it in and go, that the Mark II would be a vehicle for that, right? And so, we're using Raspberry Pi at the core of the Mark II. I think we're using maybe one of the USB ports, but the other ones are available. So you could plug a Z-Wave USB dongle into it and boom, run up Home Assistant and then ideally have it officially supported. We're using Pantacore, which is an open source team that came out of Ubuntu for atomic updates. So, ideally you'd be able to grab a Pantacore image for Home Assistant, load it on Mycroft, like just hit the button and go, right?
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting.
And then the same for Caldi, right? Like set it on the side of your TV, plug in the HDMI port on the back of the Raspberry Pi and boom, all of the experience that you get from Caldi, right out of the box. So those are two things that we're looking at. I should probably specify we have no official relationship with either of those projects. So like if I'm using their brand and their trademarks in an appropriate way, apologies guys. But yeah, we would love to be able to provide a piece of hardware that's flexible across all of those applications.
So Mycroft AI is where people can go to contribute, invest, reserve, learn, integrate, all of that good stuff.
Yep. And one of the projects I'd love to see the community undertake, when I talk about bringing data back from our community and then tagging it and putting it to use in the machine learning stuff, we built some early versions of that, but have been so heads down, just making the core experience, taking it to the level that it is even playing the same sport as Alexa and Google Assistant, that a lot of that's kind of fallen by the wayside. And so I would love to have the community step up and start taking ownership of some of that. We have these speakers in the world. We have, about 5% of the people who use Mycroft choose to donate their data. Mm-hmm. All of that data is coming in, but right now we don't have tools for tagging it, classifying it, and improving the machine learning models. So, if the community was looking for a project to contribute, that would be huge. Integrating Rasa, the open source NLU stack, and really doing a good job of it is another place we would love some help. And then, getting deep speech to the point where it's commercially viable, either through I don't know if it's been abandoned or what the situation is with deep speech and Mozilla, but either through deep speech or through the Koki team. A lot of the guys from deep speech went out and started a new project called Koki. That's another place where we'd love to see great progress that would be really helpful.
Man, there's a lot of opportunity here. A lot.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Well, and it's it's like a 35 or a $40 billion market by the end of this decade. So, I mean, I'll put it this way. The previous fastest growing technology ever was the smartphone. Mm-hmm. If you remember back in 2007 when the iPhone debuted, like 2-3 years later, everyone had either an Android or an iPhone phone. Like the flip phone ceased to exist. Yeah. In fact, you can date movies by the guy having the Razr phone, right? Like, he flips the Razr. Oh, this movie was made in 2006, right? So that was prior to now the fastest growing technology ever, right? Smart speakers rate of adoption has eclipsed that. So it is literally the fastest growing technology in the history of mankind, right? So
I need a second. I need a second to let that sink in because I don't know if I think that's mainly just frightening. I mean, I love what these devices can do for us, but I'm also a little bit scared, I think is the honest word, about what these devices look like 10, 15 years from now, and what they're doing and what they're learning about us.
George Orwell kind of envisioned this future where the mega states forced people to have TVs that watched them and monitor them, something, Cuba style, right?
They don't even have to force us. We're doing it voluntarily.
Apparently the population will pay to install surveillance equipment in their own home, right? And so, transparency, privacy, user agency, all of these things are important today, will be more important in the future.
Have you guys reached out to Linux distribution maintainers to see, like, do you want a voice assistant in Pop OS or something like that?
We have relationships. So actually, Ryan, my co-founder, went to System 76 for a couple of years, and as Alan Pope and a lot of these guys came out of the Ubuntu community, and I've spoken to some of the maintainers of Fedora. So I've had those conversations, but we haven't really been ready for prime time. I mean, we've been doing a project for the last year or so called 8+2, where the goal is to, the +2 is the setup and the configuration, and then to have the top 8 skills that people use be just super tight and work really well and provide that really great experience. Because a vast majority of people use smart speakers for general Q&A, right? They just want to ask a basic question. They want to listen to music. They want to listen to the news. They want to set a timer. They want to get the weather. And that's really it. Like, they don't want to play, some small percentage wants to play poker with their voice assistant. But, a vast majority of the use cases are just those really simple utility cases. And so we've been working really hard on that. And, once we've got that user experience tight, I think that's when we go and expand. And, there are 2 types of hardware companies, right? 2. One of them, and there's a great example of this, is Ubiquity Networks, right? At Ubiquity Networks, when they develop some new, like, super fancy 5 gigahertz that moves like 10 gigs, like 50 miles for $9, like they do over there, it's a great company. Their shelves are empty. You can never buy anything because they sold it out. And Ubiquity Networks has been that way for the last 10 years. Like, ever since I started working with them, you'd go put an order in, it's like, hey, we don't have any stuff because we sold it all. And then there are other companies that, like Juicero, right, who they're out of business, so it's okay to pick on them, who have a warehouse full of juicers that nobody needs and nobody wants, right? And so we are very much the first type. We have so many pre-orders, so many people who are interested in what we're doing that we're hoping to keep up, but it really does look like this giant mountain of demand. The future looks very bright. So.
I think it's admirable that you guys aren't trying to rush the product out there. I think it's admirable that you are waiting until that experience is tight and as you said, ready for prime time, because you only get, it's a cliche, but you only get one chance at a first impression. So,
well, we shipped the Mark 1. So we did make that first impression.
Well, I mean, as far as like a voice assistant on a,
this thing from whole cloth, man, in our makerspace. Like, this wasn't like, hey, like we have an Echo and we're going to like clone it. Like, we invented this from whole cloth. Like, this was just like cold. Like, let's give it a face. Okay. Like, it wasn't because everybody else didn't give their thing a face. It's that's at the time we were really inspired by like some of the cartoonists that were doing cool things. And so, the Mark 1, like, we didn't even know Barchin was a thing, right? The idea that it could be playing and listening at the same time. And so we put the microphone in the resonating chamber with the driver. So when that driver's running, it's not that like we can't eliminate it in software. The physical device can't hear.
Mycroft.
27%.
Shut up.
Sugar 1G. Protein 8G.
Mycroft.
15%.
I've heard enough about beans.
And so it makes Barchin really difficult. And then, of course, we knew nothing about audio design. The Mark II, by the way, sounds great because we've been doing a lot of work on it. We knew nothing about audio design. And so the resonating chamber, as we designed it, was just terrible. And so it sounds really tinny. Now, we did do some very cool stuff. But yeah, we shipped and we sold all those out. Like, and actually we got almost no RMAs. Like,
oh, that's a big deal. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, we got like 3 devices back. And so, the Mark II is intended to really be the go-to-market, like, hey, like we're building something that's relevant, that works well, that people are going to use and like, that's going to sound great. It's going to do all the stuff that they want to do and be super flexible. And then ideally be the foundation from which we do a line of speakers, a new Mark 1 that's, it's size of like one of these little hockey pucks. That's maybe $50. The Mark II, which is kind of a mid-range speaker, and then a Mark III that's got the full 8-inch screen and, a nice set of drivers on it. And then finally, like boats and microphone companies and boat companies and car companies and TV companies and, brothels and hotels and, any place that people want privacy, right? We're looking to put a smart speaker in it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, dude, Thank you so much for enlightening me, and I'm sure many other people, about just everything. I had, until this conversation, I did not understand the possibilities of what you guys are building, and now I'm really, really excited about it. And now I want to, like, light some fires and get other people excited about it too. So keep us posted on, on the Mark II and on your relationships with distro developers and all that stuff that's relevant.
It'll be good. And to my good friend Ryan Sipes, who is in Moscow with his lovely wife, who works for the State Department there. Green unicorn sandal, and we'll just see what FSB makes of that. So
I need to talk to Ryan again. I had him on the show. I had him on the show last year. Yeah, that was a great conversation.
I always joke that we say things like that, and like he goes to the public park and puts a piece of tape on a sign, right? And like, here comes the FSB car behind him, right? So anyway.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for waking up so early over there in Hawaii to be on the show. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, Jason.
You bet. You bet. Welcome to a new segment called Tech for Everyone. Tech for Everyone. It started out, okay, so there's a little bit of a history to Tech for Everyone, and maybe I should just briefly explain this before we get into our topic here. For a brief moment in time, about 3 months, the three of the best months of my professional writing career, I was paid handsomely to write about technology at voice.com before they pivoted 180 and decided we're going to be an NFT marketplace instead. Anyway, it was glorious. They helped me create this brand that was kind of an arm, I guess, a related brand arm of Linux for Everyone. It was called Tech for Everyone. And it was basically going to, it was taking the same approach that we have at Linux for Everyone and just making fun, accessible conversations about technology, mainly consumer technology. We called it Tech for Everyone. And it was just really a lot of fun. It made writing fun. And anyway, I won't get too into that. But then I thought, then voice shut down. They decided to kill what they were building. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do a newsletter. I'll call it Tech for Everyone. It'll be huge. It'll be amazing. And I realized, like, newsletters are a lot of work, guys. They really are. They're a lot of work. I got a few hundred subscribers, and I love you guys for doing that. And it's not dead, but I'm just, I'm still juggling so many plates in my hands that I haven't had time to devote to that as much as I'd like. But then kind of did a logo redesign and thought, what if Tech for Everyone was like the umbrella of Linux for Everyone? Under Tech for Everyone, you have Linux for Everyone, games for everyone, music for everyone, coffee for everyone, books for everyone. That's why, long story short, that we wanted to introduce a segment called Tech for Everyone into the Linux for Everyone show or into the channels itself. Because what I've noticed in this 3-year journey that I've had with Linux in the open source community is that by and large, you're going to have that I want to say vocal minority who champions nothing but FOSS, nothing but GNU/Linux, right? You know what? Good for you guys, but I think that I have a pretty broad slice of, like, I mean that I talk to a lot of people and I have a fairly large community. And what that community tells me is we don't mind using Mac OS. We don't mind using Windows. We prefer Linux. And, we love Linux and would mainly prefer to use Linux the majority of our days. But we're not opposed to using other technology because technology is fun and it's awesome. And we like to explore other things besides just Linux and open source. because technology is a tool, and you use the right tool for the job. And that being said, we wanted to talk about things that are a little bit outside the Linux ecosystem, but that might someday become a very important part of the ecosystem, like this Apple M1 MacBook Air.
Oh yeah.
That everybody seems to own, by the way. I was late to the party. I drove to Geneva to visit my brother-in-law and realized there's an Apple store there. And I was like, uh-oh. I traded in my 2016 MacBook Pro, got like 800 USD for it, 2016 MacBook Pro, and only paid a few $100 for the M1 Air. So I was a little late to the party, but then I started noticing, as I was saying in another segment that we just did, about like when you buy a new car and you notice that same make and model all over the place. I have noticed that everyone and a ton of people in our community, shout out to Justin and Jerry and just all kinds of people seem to be just like sprouting MacBook Airs, M1, or they're buying the M1 Pro or the M1 Max, and that's arriving next week, the lucky bastards. I need to slow down. But we need to talk about the M1 Mac, I think, because we both have it now. And I think that there's a lot to unpack, even a year later. And I feel like it's still a very exciting product, even with the higher tiered M1 Pro and M1 Max. So I'm going to shut up, Schykle, and I'm going to bask in the glory that is the newness of your M1 MacBook Air, because you got one like a week ago, right?
I did.
Not even
like 2 or 3 days ago.
So just spew, like, go. Thoughts, impressions, hopes, dreams.
Impressions? Let me just put it this way. One day, I got a MacBook Air. The very next morning, I completely cleaned off my desk, rearranged it, permanently fixated a dock dedicated for the Air to connect all my peripherals, and I have no other machine here. So first off, it immediately became my primary device for like all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And then the day after that, I replaced the shared machine in the house, the main machine, which had a 16 thread, 8-core Ryzen 2700, or an RX 5700 XT, 32 gigs of RAM. I decommissioned that, and there's now a Mac Mini, a beautiful silver Mac Mini, sitting on the desk, plugged into a super ultra wide.
Oh, hold on! You got a Mini?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought it was an Air.
Oh no, I got the Air and the.
Oh snap! I didn't know I didn't realize you got both.
The Air convinced me. That's how bad and good it is at the same time. The condition is bad. The situation is great.
Okay, why is the situation great? I want you to tell me why. The very next day, you were just like, yeah.
There is a disproportionate amount of silence compared to performance, compared to the amount of time I can be on battery, and altogether experience the same level that I would do on a machine, often costing maybe twice, 3 times as much, with sacrifices in efficiency and size and just the sound of it all. It's just I have never picked up a device like this and expected it to not only I play CS:GO, right? And native resolution, everything's on high settings, and I'm averaging 80, 90 FPS consistently with a device that isn't actively cooled. Kind of crazy, and on battery. And beyond that, it doesn't end there. I tossed in some 8K clips into iMovie.
Yeah. iMovie, a free app. Yeah, a free app.
Exactly. free, comes with the Mac, and rendered out some video, and it did it on battery, and I barely took a hit on the battery life. Like, my 8-core, 16-thread crazy machine over there can't even do that with Windows and default installed software. Windows comes with a video editor. I can't even do 1080p reliably on that.
Yeah,
so
I know. It's...
I don't know how to process it. Like, I'm like speechless constantly because it just does things and it doesn't expect much from you at all.
Well, it does expect your money and your loyalty. There's so much to unpack, and at the same time, I feel like I'm in a bit of a defensive posture. I feel like the relationship that Linux users have with Mac OS and with Apple is completely different than it is with Microsoft and Windows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a subtle difference, maybe, but with Windows, it's kind of like, I'll use it if I have to.
People accept it.
They accept it like it's a thing. It's just, it's pervasive. It's everywhere. Okay, it exists. Fine. Microsoft's bringing Edge, or they might bring Office to Linux. Yay! WSL, obviously. Like, whether you want to consider that embracing Linux users or trying to extinguish Linux is your call. Okay, I'm not here to make that judgment call. But with Mac OS, it's just like love or hate. Just pure love or hate. Like, Apple is the devil and they're evil, just like Facebook, or, oh my God, I love Mac OS. Honestly, it's just my observation, and I could be wrong.
I always come across conversations, if you can call them conversations, where the impression and the claims that people make are that Apple is just sort of like hanging a carrot in front of users and they're too dumb to just do anything else.
Well, no, that's Intel's impression, actually. Intel's impression of Apple users.
Yeah, I've seen that. Oh boy.
Woo!
Oh my goodness. That's gonna backfire.
And I think it did. If you look at the Twitter conversations and the ratio of up and down votes on the videos,
they've been trying this for like a year now. It's still not working. I wonder why.
But to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, I went and got the M1 MacBook Air. You know what? I've never used any piece of hardware like this before. The closest I have come. Not that there aren't other similar products, maybe, but the TUXEDO Infinity Book Pro 14, which, if I'm not mistaken, is fanless. It's about the same size, the same thickness, the same weight. Very, very high resolution screen, 3K screen, a little higher than 3K, maybe. Nice. Yeah, it's in gorgeous, beautiful, super bright, super deep colors. So that is the kind of the closest analog. They're not the same experience because, for starters, M1 is of course based on ARM technology, and it is just way more power efficient than you could possibly believe in shocking ways. Like you were saying that you play CS:GO, right? The first weekend I had this, I wanted to do some gaming on it, and I didn't want to be in the office, Like, I get that mentality sometimes where even if I'm playing a game for fun, I feel like I'm working because I'm in the office. And so I was like, I want to go out on the couch and grab like a gamepad and just play something on the Mac and just chill out, right? So it was charged up. I grabbed my controller, my PS4 controller, synced it up, Bluetooth, no problem, and went and just sat on the couch and played the Tomb Raider reboot that Feral Interactive did for both Linux and Mac OS. I kid you not, I was playing that on high quality, getting like 50 to 65 FPS, and I played for 5 hours. I played a AAA graphically demanding game on a laptop for 5 hours, and it barely heated up. It was silent, and I still had like 25% battery left. What?
That's unbelievable. It's just, it's unreal. Like it's so ridiculous. Like it almost makes me like not want to use anything else. Actually, it does make me not want to use anything else. Like, because
Well-
it's just like this is the standard now, right? Like,
Yes.
we know it's possible, and realistically, I'm not gonna lie, we've known it's been possible for ages.
It's been hiding in a corner with in iPads and iPhones. That
Yeah,
this potential has been here all along. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
exactly. And honestly, we maybe see some things where Intel is experimenting with these like efficiency cores and non-efficiency cores, but at the end of the day, they're still going to suffer from the same problems that make even their most powerful processors pale in comparison, and it's that they lack optimization for specific tasks that everybody benefits from.
Yeah.
They're so generic that, I mean, it just doesn't, it almost doesn't matter what you use. You could use Windows or Linux, and it would suffer either way.
I am positive that I think we're going to see more ARM systems seep into our lives. And I think that people are going to start realizing, because Intel and AMD for the most part, it has, especially with the Ryzen 4000, 5000 series, I mean, they're pretty damn power efficient. If you look at the Pulse 15 from TUXEDO, which is actually what I'm recording on right now, the battery life on that is insane. It's fantastic. Battery life wise, like this is the closest that you can get to a MacBook Air for an M1, a non-Intel MacBook Air. So I think Intel has a little more catching up to do, but I think it's going to take both of these companies several years to catch up to the power efficiency of where Apple is right now, and many more years and a whole lot of resources and R&D to catch up to their performance per watt in terms of compute and graphics. Because as we saw, like, everyone's starting to catch up with the M1 Air, like slowly, you know, you're starting to see the gap close just a little bit with Intel 11th gen and Intel Xe and Ryzen, 6000, or on the horizon anyway, Ryzen 5000. And then Apple, of course, announces the M1 Pro and M1 Max, and it's just like, no one's catching them for years. Now, the biggest praise that I can give the standard M1 is that, as excited as I was about the power and the potential and the just the raw horsepower of those new M1 Pro and M1 Max chips, I looked at my M1 Air and I was like, I'm happy with it. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'll wait till, 2 or 3 more generations and then maybe I'll pick one up. But right now, I'm good. I didn't have the hardware lust, I didn't have the hardware lust going, Jason, buy me, buy me, buy me. I didn't have it.
I got mine a day or two, I think a couple days after the event.
Which is crazy,
And-
by the way.
Yeah.
I think it's one thing to buy it a few months before these things are unveiled, but you went out and you bought
After.
like what is sort of a generation old thing officially
Yeah.
after the event. And
Yeah.
you're still
Like-
and you're still ecstatic with it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
just how impressive it is. I looked at it, and I'm going to be honest with you. I am thrilled, and I probably will at some point get one, probably a month or 2, 3 months after pre-orders stop. Everybody's got their stuff, and I'm confident they're not going to
Some
release
reviews.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see some reviews, obviously, but
But honestly, like, just the level of power the Air has for being what it is, it's mind-blowing. And the M1 Pro, the M1 Max are an entirely different level. And I will be honest, the entire architecture, this entire family are all so good at everything they do. I don't even need that.
yeah,
You know.
I'm the same way, and I'm definitely what I would consider a power user. Despite all of my praise, all of our praise for the M1, it's still not my daily driver. I'm using Kubuntu 2110 on a TUXEDO laptop right now to record this, right? Because there are many aspects of macOS that's lacking. For one thing, I'm not going to play games on it. Yes, once in a while, I will go play a 5-year-old game on the couch with my Mac. But if I want to play Deathloop or Death Stranding or any number of games that have come out recently I'm going to be on my Linux box. Radeon 6800 XT and a Ryzen 3900X and 32 gigs of RAM and like 7 different hard drives, you know. And you still cannot touch the customization of a good Linux distro.
Oh yeah.
You know, I've got my Kubuntu like all decked out exactly how I love it. I love Plasma. I love the customization, the animations, the default apps are all brilliant. You know, I love using Plasma. That's the only thing I miss when I use Mac OS is I miss the customization and all the eye candy that I can have. But I'll tell you one thing, Schykle. If we ever reach a reality where game publishers are like, we need to start putting our games on Mac OS because this is some pretty powerful stuff, then I don't know what's going to happen. And this is where, you know, I feel like I shouldn't feel this way, right? I shouldn't feel bad about talking about a piece of hardware that isn't running Linux.
Yeah.
But guess what? Someday it's going to. And that is one of the reasons that I bought the M1 Air, is the Asahi Linux project. Right now, the current status of Asahi Linux, and this guy is getting a basically what amounts to a full-time salary to have this entire team put together, devoted to giving users a first-class Linux experience on M1 hardware. And in fact, the project announced just hours after the Mac event recently that they are buying an M1 Pro and M1 Max, and they're going to work on that too. Right now, there are people within the team who are using their M1 MacBooks as a daily driver Linux desktop. But
yeah,
the only exception being that it's not graphics accelerated yet. It's not hardware accelerated. There are so many driver pieces that are coming into place and that are being actually inserted into the kernel. And one more thing is that they are currently building an installer for the rest of us, right? For the people who are not Linux command line wizards who, you know...
Us who need it.
Us who need it. Like, we need a typical, like, you know, give us a normal Linux installer so that we can put this on there without blowing our, you know, exploding our heads. So that is in production right now. And I'm going to say, like, within the next 6 months maximum, we're going to have a very, very awesome Linux experience on the M1 hardware. I'm looking forward to that day. Really, really looking forward to that day.
It's going to be a good time.
It's a tricky conversation to have, isn't it? Like, as someone who's...
It really is. It's a minefield.
I feel like there's a filter in my head. My filter, the filter is here, and the filter is you're recording something for the Linux for Everyone channel, right? And all the content is like sifting through that. All the things I want to say are sifting through that. And I just shouldn't feel like that. And that's one of the reasons why I had considered rebranding it into Tech for Everyone, is because, there's... I know a lot of people don't want to hear me talk about Windows or Mac OS, right?
Yeah.
But there is an intersection. There is an intersection here that I'm going to be exploring that I'm very, very excited about. But I've got to tell you guys that as someone who's a content producer and who does this kind of stuff all day, the Mac hardware makes it easier for me. It does.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it easier for me. It's quieter. It's more portable. I get more time away from the wall. It has put me...
It's difficult.
The purchase of this Mac has made me feel very conflicted. And that's because it's such a damn good product. And I'm the one out here preaching Linux and open source, but also saying, like, use the right tool for the job.
Yeah. Do you have other Apple devices, by the way, or is it just the MacBook?
I have an iPad that I bought like at the beginning of 2020, and I pretty much I don't use that very often. Like, if I'm in bed, I might read some news, or I might play. I've been playing the crap out of Lego Star Wars Battles because that game's great.
Oh,
the game is so much fun.
I love Lego.
Yeah, but I don't use it as any kind of like regular device.
I've discovered something that I kind of knew was the case, but experiencing it, more firsthand, especially in such a well-developed area. So my mom uses an iPhone. I'll probably get one again as well. And then I've got this Air here. My mom actually just got her Apple Watch, which I'm super thrilled by because like she's been needing one for ages now, and so I helped her set that up, and so I got to experience how that whole thing goes. Right, first and foremost, amazing. Setting it up, you literally just hover. The watch displays some interesting, like crazy, cool, cryptic shit. You hover the camera in the watch app over it, boom, syncs, paired immediately, done.
Yeah.
It's connected.
Yeah.
And assigned
Easy.
to you.
Simple. Yes. Yeah.
And then I went to set up the Mac Mini. First off, by the way, the fact that I just plugged it into the super ultra wide thing and it just worked. Like that was part of the decision to like wait for iMac to be in stock or get Mac Mini and just plug it into existing hardware. I signed into my Apple thing, Apple ID. Having an update was super fast and easy. Like, it literally just press it, don't even think about it. Just go away. Everything can happen in the background. But the whole, like, find my device thing was synced up and ready. The whole, like, activities understanding between them synced up and ready, right? Like, all of this stuff just happened. And if you have an iPhone, and you have it enabled on Mac, I don't have it, but I saw it when my mom was using it. In your dock, and you're doing stuff on your iPhone, it'll actually show you some of the tasks that you're doing on the phone. So if you set your phone down and you want to pick up
about that.
on that task, it just comes up on the Mac. And messages, iMessage, not only does it sync your iMessages, but even the SMS messages to the desktop, and it includes autofill. So if you're signing into an account and you get that iMessage thing, you don't even have to open it. You just click the thing that says autofill from messages on your laptop or your like,
this is
why can Windows, the most prominent, I know they're trying. This has been something that I know Apple has been able to do for years. But it's obviously still impressive experiencing it firsthand when I've been out of that ecosystem for so long. It's been at least 3 or 4 years for me now. So to get back into it and realize that, wow, it's this good, it's only gotten better, and everyone is still so far behind.
Yeah, I know.
It hurts.
This is one of the biggest areas of opportunity for desktop Linux. And this is something that yes, I am helpless to do anything about it. I'm not a programmer. I can do things like raise awareness, and I can do things like connecting people. This concept of a cohesive ecosystem, regardless of the device you're on, is something that Linux is so far away from. I don't even know how long it's going to take to get there. Just last night, actually, Schykle, I was talking to Joshua Montgomery, who's one of the co-founders of Mycroft AI. They're doing some really exciting things right now, and I can't wait for you guys to hear that interview. But I was telling him, I daydream about the existence of this coherent ecosystem where I can have something like a UBports phone, or maybe Graphene OS, or a more privacy-centric phone, maybe a Linux Plasma Mobile, right? Give me a Plasma Mobile phone with Mycroft AI voice assistant, and this synergy with my Kubuntu Plasma desktop and laptop, or other distros besides Plasma, right? And I want that synergy. Because I know first world problems, but I have a lot of devices. It would be so wonderful to have that kind of cohesiveness that you were just talking about on our non-Apple and non-Windows devices. We need that. We need that before anyone is going to take desktop Linux seriously. Really,
we have the technical capacity. That's what I'm excited about.
We've got all of the capacity. Like,
we have
all
everything you could want.
The pieces are all there. The knowledge is there. The skill is there. I feel like it's all there. But how do we build it? How do we, like, I don't know. I'm so exasperated by it, because there are so many brilliant minds. If anybody is going to come close to it, it's going to be the elementary OS guys and gals.
Oh, I believe it.
The elementary OS people.
They tend to be able to like apply vision and make it happen, and I like in a way that I don't think is paralleled, or at least the same as any other project, right? Like they just seem to think things out in a way that is unique to them, and I think that's their strength, right? That's what defines them so well. Is just that their vision is tracked so well.
Deepin may have something close to this. Don't quote me on it, but I haven't covered Deepin in like a year. But I thought that they had something, and now I think it was like Deepin Cloud, and it may have only launched in China. But it was that kind of a basic concept where you could sync your Wi-Fi networks and your desktop settings and your basic preferences to the cloud, and then log in on a new installation and sync all that down. And like we don't even have that kind of basic tool in Ubuntu, for Christ's sake, in Fedora. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. And I know there are plenty of scripts and solutions and workarounds, but none of those are for average everyday people. Gotta step off my podium. Step off my soapbox.
We also don't have that, like, we have like some apps for it, and it's kind of cool, but they're sort of semi-supported and not built into everything.
Okay.
Is backup applications that are actually like genuinely intelligent. Like, I want to point out that something I've been working on is just repurposing one of my machines as a backup server.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's get into this. Because you talked to me about this in our group, and I want to hear all about this. This is... Okay, go.
So I've been tinkering with Time Machine. And for any of you who don't know what Time Machine is, it's a incremental backup solution that macOS has. And the benefits of this, incremental is a key part here, is that it tracks changes made rather than every backup being a full system dump.
Yes, so like Delta updates,
exactly.
but for backups, yeah.
It takes up less space, but it also allows you to track changes as they happen. So you don't end up with just losing steps of the way there, like,
and it does that visually,
undo.
right? Like when you enter what is it called, Time Machine, it kind of like warps you into like, okay, this is what your file system looked like yesterday, and this is what it looked like a week ago. And you just scroll through it, and if you're looking for a certain file and you pick it out and you go, boom, restore it, phew, done.
It's back.
Yeah.
And restoring it doesn't break the flow of the Time Machine backup in any way either. It, like, I've seen backup solutions where if you restore a file, it sort of messes with it in previous instances of the archive. That should never happen.
Right.
It's beautiful. And do you know what it took to set this up, to just enable this backup system and have it track these changes and just automatically have like some hourly and daily and weekly and monthly backups?
Plugging in a drive? I don't know.
Plugging in a drive.
Okay.
Literally plugging in a drive and clicking the enable automatic backups button.
This is, by the way, still not something Windows 11 does. How?
No.
How are we in 2021 with a brand new Microsoft operating system, and we are not presenting users with a backup solution out of the box, right?
They have
OneDrive
file history.
It's
It's not great. It's really not great.
Are you devoting a storage drive or a partition to backups using that?
File history?
Yeah.
No, you could dump it anywhere.
Yeah. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I digress. Do want to give a quick shout out though to Deja Dupe on Linux, because that is also an incremental backup system, which is
It's really cool.
Not as beautiful, not as accessible in terms of GUI, but still very effective and works really well. Continue.
I think something that I would love to see with things like Deja Dupe is integration into the file system. All right. Being able to right click and restore from this time, or being able to do things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would make it much more, I think, approachable to users to use their backups.
Yeah, familiar too, because people know about that OneDrive style integration.
Exactly.
And that's what they're used to, that contextual right click. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, I think you sort of just have to pick an archive and then just restore it and browse the folder and figure it out. So, but it works really well, and it can back up to Google Drive, it can back up to remote or local or remote network drives. So that's pretty handy.
Yeah. But again, not enabled on all distros. I think it is enabled by default in certain distros. So I don't want to take that away from the distros that enable that by default, because props to you guys for doing that. Okay, but you were talking about setting up a dedicated backup server?
Yes.
Right? You're not plugging in a drive to your Mac for Time Machine, but
nope.
So what are you playing with then?
I have taken it upon myself to create a Time Machine server on Linux, and I will be dedicating a machine.
Wait. A Mac OS Time Machine server on Linux.
Oh,
all right, I'm with you. I like this. Okay.
The alternative is to go out and buy a piece of hardware that just does this over the network out of the box. But I don't really flow that way, right?
Yes, you go against the grain.
I want as much storage as I want. I want to configure the disks the way I want them to be configured, and I want full access to the machine, and I want it to run Linux because I'm familiar with how those tools work.
Okay.
And, I've already got a machine there with like a bunch of drives in it, so make the most out of it.
Yeah.
And the best thing about this is that it happens over the network. And I set up the server with Samba. I load up some Apple modules just in a config file. These things are built in by default, so you just sort of have to enable them. And
what distro are you running for this?
So I'm doing it on Fedora at the moment.
Okay.
And so far, it's worked incredibly well. Essentially, you create this Samba share with a certain amount, like certain permissions and masking, and you enable things like Spotlight for the backup directories and all that stuff in the server configuration, or the Samba configuration. And so once you do that, and it's on the network, all you have to do is from any macOS device on your network, when you go to enable Time Machine, it'll actually show you network devices, and you can just choose it.
So,
it'll
okay.
just be there permanently.
All right, let me back up like 5 or 6 or 7 maybe years ago. When is the last time that I bought a Mac before this new one, right? It was many years ago. And they sold something called a time capsule, which is basically a wireless backup drive, right?
Yeah.
I thought that if you weren't using a product like that, it was super, super complicated to set up wireless Time Machine backups. But apparently it's not.
Now.
Is there a guide out there that people can consult?
There are a couple.
Okay.
I'll definitely I'll drop a couple in or actually I'll let you drop a couple in the description here. And but I think it's something that I should probably write up a simplified guide for, and
I'd love to
that way.
I would love to share that. I mean, because what I primarily use Mac OS for still is music production.
Yeah,
and that is something that I want multiple backups for all the time. If my external drive fails, I want it somewhere else, and if that fails, I want it somewhere else, because there's no getting that stuff back.
One of my favorite parts about doing it this way as well is that I would choose, 3 or more drives, and I would run in a parity RAID. And it's not the same as having a backup. RAID is not a backup. That's something we should all keep in mind.
No.
But my favorite thing about that is if I'm going to rely on this machine to be my backup server, you know, I can choose to run it in a way where if a disk fails, I don't lose all of my backups from all of my Mac devices. You know, I could just replace the drive. And that's part of the reason why I don't want to rely on a third-party solution. I don't know if I'll be able to repair a third-party solution if a drive fails, or if they have that capability in the first place. I don't know what they do on my network, you know? On top of that, the solution with a network time machine backup is that you can, and as many Macs as you have, you could just choose that, and they all just can use whatever server you create. You don't have to physically unplug a drive and plug it into your other Mac and let it do that. It's just wherever you set it up, all of your devices can just, boom, here's our backups. We know where they go and how to get them. Even TVs understand Samba these days. So you could also use this solution to store media that you would watch on your TV.
Okay, all right. Because here's my dream. All right, here's my dream. I have a Thelio with a surprising amount of storage capacity. So I currently have an NVMe drive, 2 SSD drives, and 2 deep storage drives that are both 2 terabytes. And my dream is setting up the Thelio as kind of my all-in-one backup system, where not only can I back up Mac OS and Windows and Linux data, but I can also use it as a Steam cache server, because as often as I am testing, benchmarking games for Will It Linux, that series, or I'm just reviewing a laptop or whatever, like I'm constantly moving around all these drives and downloading new stuff and updating the updates. Oh my God. Like,
yes.
Whenever I plug in, I don't know if it's here. It's a 1 terabyte external SSD, right? Samsung SSD. And whenever I plug that thing into a new machine, it's just like there's so many updates, and it clogs the network bandwidth. And so I want to also use the Thelio as like the master machine for all of my Steam stuff that I need.
We are gonna trick out your entire setup.
Let's do it. Let's make it. Do you want to? Let's do a video series on it. Let's do like a 2 or 3 part or whatever it takes. Like, because I've got all the hardware. I just need your time and a little bit of trial and error, and I think that we could do it. Yeah.
This is what I live for, right? This is what I enjoy doing, and I think it's part of why I was so interested in going to work with System 76 is that like getting tech to do things is just so damn fun for me.
Yeah, especially stuff that you didn't think like me today. I didn't think that you could. The combination of words that you used, right? Like wireless time machine backup on a Linux server. I'm like, what?
Yep. Oh yeah. And the other thing is too is like I feel like I've sort of created this environment here where like I've tested these different setups and I found something that works for me, right? And so like when you mention something that you want to do, you're like, well, I want to have an easy way to access this, or I want an easy way to like dump all this stuff into the OneDrive but access it to other places, right? I'm just kind of like, you will not believe what I just spent the last 3 days doing, coincidentally. And here we are.
Dude.
I've like the gif of from with the whiteboard, and he's like losing his mind.
Yeah.
Well, that's me right now, right? I've just kind of like I've done all this network stuff, and I've set up RAID arrays, and I've set up all this to find the easiest but also the most resilient way to do it.
Well, let's do it. Whatever we need, man. I got Raspberry Pis, I got Thalios, I got spare laptops, like whatever. You tell me what you need and I will put it on this desk. Well, this has been a really...
I love tech.
I love tech too. Tech for everyone. You know,
Yes.
that's to bring it all the way back around. I mean, it's interesting that we're having this conversation. I'm not really precisely sure where it will end up living yet. The beauty of it is having a great conversation and figuring the rest out later. Since this has been a pretty Apple dominated, Mac M1 dominated conversation, let's close this out with one thing you think that Apple could do better with Mac OS. What can Apple do better?
Oh boy.
Do you have a long
I love
list?
Mac OS, but I will say that if I were gonna pick something, I would say that the window management could be improved.
Oh, definitely. That's. I'm sorry to like. It sounds like I'm just gonna copy your homework, but that was my answer too. So damn it. Yeah.
Like you could get used to it.
You could.
It definitely does things that you don't expect it to do.
Especially when, like, okay, yes, this has been maybe you guys think we're fanboying out about Apple here, but you know what? When I go from Pop! OS Cosmic on multiple monitors with the sublime auto window tiling, and I go to Mac OS, I'm just like, this is garbage. This is garbage.
It is difficult to work around.
There are third-party applications. One's called Amethyst, but that still pales in comparison to Pop's auto tiling. I think the best that Mac OS can do is when you are zoomed in to an app when it's full screen, you can click the little green button and you can, tile another app like to the left or the right of it. But
it does it automatically for some things too. Like if you're in a zoomed app and you click on a notification,
okay,
it'll just show up next to it.
That's nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But that is like the full extent of its ability.
But like, come on, Apple, you can't sell something like an M1 Pro or M1 Max MacBook Pro and bring back all the ports that people wanted and say you can connect this thing to three 8K monitors and a fourth 4K monitor and not give us any kind of auto tiling for all those monitors? Are you out of your mind?
You know what the solution actually is? Is that when you run out of space of untiled windows, you just add a monitor.
Like, my God. Sure, I'll auto tile. Let me just plug this in. Hold on.
It's just overflow. That's what it actually is.
I'll tell you what I'll do when I get, by the time that I can afford a decked out M1 Pro MacBook, I hope I'm running a version of KDE Plasma on it with auto tiling, or Pop! OS or Pop! OS with auto tiling. That's what I would rather be doing with it. But
that'd be so fun.
I'll leave you with this image, okay? I want you to imagine trying to use like the GNOME desktop or Windows 11 with a notch in the new MacBook Pro. It's almost like Apple said, "Nope, you're only using Mac OS on this thing, like it or not, because the experience will be ugly if you don't." I think you should go. I think you should go to sleep. I think I should get some more coffee and start editing this mountain of content that I have massed for the last few days. Damn, dude. Well, thank you so much.
That was great.
This felt like a Linux Plus coffee, even though it wasn't. Anyway, good luck at System 76. Please come back to us. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, so I'm just gonna go. Please come back to us. Like what? Like you're going into some cult. All right, dude. I'm gonna go.
You have a good one, man. It's always a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure.
Same to you, dude. All right.
Thanks, man. I'll see you. Sorry, I was tabbed out, so I didn't.
Yeah, you're gonna be tabbed out. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but it just sounded funny.
Help it. The existence of Ariana Grande also implies the existence of Ariana Venti, Ariana Tall, and
Ariana Grande. Yes. I like that. I can appreciate that as a former Starbucks barista.
We can drink on the clock.
What? You can, like, at System 76, you can legally...
As long as you're not operating heavy machinery or it doesn't interfere with your... Yeah.
I love this company.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do too. Okay, cool.
All right, here we go.